When we think about India's independence, it's easy to picture just one single moment of victory. But the real story? Oh, it's so much more complex than that. It's this incredible tapestry woven from powerful ideas, massive movements, and the very different dreams of millions of people. Today, we're going to unravel that story. We'll look at the people, the symbols, and the struggles that literally forged one of the world's biggest nations.
All right, so let's jump right in. When Mahatma Gandhi came back to India in 1915, he brought this revolutionary idea with him. It's called Satyagraha. You'd say it's Satyagraha. Now, it's built on two really simple but powerful ideas. Satya, which means truth, and ahimsa, which means nonviolence. And the core belief was, well, it was profound. If your cause is truly just, if you are on the side of truth, you don't need violence to win.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because Gandhi was absolutely adamant that Satyagraha was not passive resistance. He saw it as a deeply active, powerful force. A weapon, he said, for the strong, not the weak. See, the goal wasn't just to get in the way or block your opponent. The real goal was to appeal to their conscience, to actually change their mind and make them see the truth of your cause.
So, okay, Gandhi's got this powerful new philosophy, this weapon for the strong. But the big question is, how is this weapon of truth going to hold up in its first major test against the incredible might of the British Empire?
Well, that has came pretty quick. In 1919, the British passed something called the Rowlatt Act, and this was a seriously repressive law. It basically gave them the power to throw any political activist in jail for up to 2 years without even giving them a trial. As you can imagine, this caused outrage all across India. It was seen as a fundamental attack on liberty, and protests erupted everywhere.
And in the city of Amritsar, things just exploded. I mean, look at this timeline. It's terrifying how fast it all happened. On April 10th, police fire on a peaceful crowd. When the protesters fight back, the situation just spirals out of control. Martial law is declared. And then, just 3 days later, on April 13th, a huge crowd gathered in a walled garden called Jallianwala Bagh. Many of them were there for a festival, totally unaware of the new rules.
The man in command, General Dyer, blocked the only way out and ordered his soldiers to fire into the unarmed crowd. And if you want to know the intent, just read his own words here. It's chilling. He says his goal was to produce a moral effect, a feeling of terror. This wasn't about controlling a crowd. It was a calculated act of terror meant to crush the entire movement. Hundreds were killed. It was one of the darkest days of British rule in India. After a horror like that, Gandhi knew they had to do something bigger, something that involved the whole nation. He launched the non-cooperation movement, and a huge part of the strategy was economic. The thinking was, if you can't fight the British with guns, you hit them where it hurts, their wallets. So the call went out everywhere: boycott foreign goods, especially British cloth.
And wow, did it work? I mean, this slide just shows you how effective it was. Look at those numbers. In just 1 year, between 1921 and 1922, the value of imported cloth was almost cut in half. It dropped from 102 crore rupees down to just 57 crore. This was a massive economic blow to the British, as people all over India lit these huge bonfires of foreign textiles and started buying Indian-made goods instead.
But here's the thing, and it's a problem you see in so many movements. It's that clash between a powerful symbol and just practical, everyday reality. The alternative to the cheap British cloth was Indian hand-spun cloth, called khadi. And while khadi was a powerful symbol of self-reliance, it was also way more expensive. And that created a real problem for the poor. How could they afford to participate? It just goes to show how complex these struggles really are.
Okay, so now let's turn to what is maybe the most iconic moment of the entire freedom struggle, an event that got the whole world watching: the Salt March.
And Gandhi's choice of target here was pure genius. Of all things. Why salt? Well, the British had a total monopoly on making and selling salt, and they slapped a heavy tax on it. Think about it. Salt is something every single person in India needed, every single day, whether they were rich or poor. It was the perfect symbol of British oppression touching everyone's life.
So, picture this. Gandhi and 78 of his followers, they just start walking. They walk for 24 days, covering 240 kilometers, and the whole way, more and more people join them. It became this incredible spectacle. And when they finally got to the coast, to the town of Dandi, Gandhi did something so simple but so powerful. He just boiled some seawater to make salt, openly and publicly breaking British law.
And that one simple act, it was like a match to dry tinder. The whole country just erupted in what was called the civil disobedience movement. The British response was, of course, swift and brutal. In the crackdown that followed, something like 100,000 people were arrested, and that included women and children. 100,000.
But this is so important to get. While it looked like one big unified movement on the outside, the idea of Swaraj, or self-rule, meant totally different things to the different groups who were all fighting for it.
Yeah, this slide is key because it just breaks it all down. For a rich peasant, Swaraj meant, hey, lower my taxes. But for the poor farmer working on his land, it meant cancel my rent, which, of course, put the Indian National Congress in a tough spot because they didn't want to alienate the wealthy landowners. For industrial workers, it was simpler. Better wages, better conditions. And for the Dalits, the untouchables, the fight was for basic political rights, an end to social discrimination. You can just see how Congress had to constantly juggle all these competing interests to keep this fragile coalition together.
And this wasn't just happening in theory, right? There were real leaders, real people on the ground. You had Baba Ramchandra leading peasants against a form of forced unpaid labor called Bekar. In the Gudam Hills, a guy named Alluri Sitaram Raju was leading a tribal rebellion, and he, unlike Gandhi, believed force was absolutely necessary. And for the plantation workers in Assam, Gandhi Raj wasn't some abstract political idea. It was the simple, beautiful dream of being free to finally leave the plantations and go home.
So think about it. You've got all these different groups, all with their own goals, their own struggles. How in the world do you get them all to feel like they're part of one single nation? Well, the fight wasn't just political or economic. It was also a cultural one, a battle fought with symbols, stories, and songs. A huge part of this was creating a visual identity for the nation. Giving it a face, something people could actually see and connect with on an emotional level. And this led to the creation of Bharat Mata, or Mother India, personifying the entire land as a divine mother. This famous painting by Abanindranath Tagore just captures that idea perfectly. She's not a warrior, right? She's calm, she's spiritual, almost like a monk. And this was a deliberate choice. It was meant to show an Indian identity that was ancient, dignified, and completely separate from the materialistic culture of the British rulers. And you can see the same kind of thinking in how the flag changed over time. The early Swadeshi flag had symbols for the different provinces and for Hindu-Muslim unity. But by 1921, Gandhi's Swaraj flag had a really important change, right in the center, the charkha, the spinning wheel. That one symbol powerfully represented that core Gandhian idea of economic self-reliance, the belief that Indians could and should build their own future. Another huge part of this was taking back their own story, their own history. See, the British had spent a long time pushing this narrative that India was a backward place that needed them to be civilized. So, in response, Indian nationalists started celebrating this glorious golden age of ancient India, a time of incredible achievements in science, art, and philosophy, all to build up a sense of national pride.
But that brings up a really tough, really important question. In a country as diverse as India, when you talk about a glorious past, whose past exactly are you celebrating? And this really gets to the core tension of the whole project. A lot of the powerful symbols that were used to unite the nation, from the image of Bharat Mata to the histories being told, were drawn very heavily from Hindu culture and religion. And an unfortunate result of that was that people from other communities, like Muslims, often felt left out, alienated from this new national story being built. And really, that leaves us with the fundamental challenge, the one that defined the freedom struggle, and in many ways continues to shape India today. How do you build a single, unified identity for a nation that comes from so many different pasts, so many different languages, struggles, and beliefs? It's a question that every diverse nation on Earth has to keep asking itself.